Cheat Code V3 with a WT Micro hard body on top. Pull this guy off and we can get through the build, and I'll kind of show you around. First and foremost, pretty much one of the most important parts here is going to be the axles. I like to run the LGRP axles a lot on my builds, and you can see I've got the brass stiff covers front and back. This comes with a 212 worm gear in the front. That's going to give you 33% overdrive. If you wanted to change that, you could go 213. That would be a 23% overdrive. 214 would be 14% overdrive. Overdrive basically means that the front's going to spin faster than the rear. Why would you want that, or why would that be good? In these small crawlers, it helps you kind of like pull you up and over rocks, and then also it helps with your turning radius as well. It kind of like pulls the truck around the corner because the front is moving faster than the rear. So one of the biggest upgrades I can recommend is overdrive in the front or underdrive in the rear. I prefer overdrive in the front. The reason for that is because I like the extra wheel speed, and more on that in a second. So other things here with regards to the build, I'm running a Lizard Pro from LGRP. I like to buy this particular product from LGRP, and the reason is I like the case. It makes it easy to mount, and if you're sort of concerned about what the interior looks like, it's a nice sort of black finish, so it kind of blends in. And then if you're a member, you get 15% off. So a $79 ESC is going to become $68. And if you're a member, and I'm not like pushing the membership part or anything like that, you get free expedited shipping. So you do save some cost there on shipping and the overall cost of that. There's other options out there now, and I know there's smaller options, but this is sort of the tried and true method for me. And it's what I had on hand when I put this build together. So looking further kind of in here, this is the FlySky GT5 receiver. Some people put the battery up front. You can. This is just sort of how this worked out for me here with this build. Sometimes I decase them, but for this it worked real well because you kind of jam it in there and wrap the wires around, and the tension from the wires holds everything in place. This is the LGRP MR24 transmission. I like this transmission a lot for several reasons. One, I think it's pretty cost effective, again, if you're a member, but it also bolts up to these CAN motors pretty easily. This is a Mofo RC NanoBam, I believe this was, and this is one of his earlier versions, so might look a little different if you're looking to buy this now. To me, it's very similar to the the Fury Tech Komodo, the little one. So I kind of just threw it on there because I like the color and it's just what I had. One thing I do want to note about this particular transmission is that this comes overdriven from LGRP, and they do offer different gearing options as well. I like the 21% overdrive from the transmission that comes standard from the factory. The reason is I like the extra wheel speed, and I like the option to be able to like bump up the truck, which is kind of my driving style. I want to be clear though that if you do get an overdrive transmission, it's not going to make the front drive faster or the rear drive slower or vice versa or anything like that. It's just going to make the overall truck move 21% faster. So if you look on their website, the LGRP website, if you went with a 191-1 gear ratio, that would be 34% overdriven. I think that's kind of what they like to run over there, but I like the 218-1, which is 21%. Really can't go wrong with either, but I just think that's the way to go. So what else can I tell you about this guy? Links. So I'm running the Nerd RC links in the rear. I did have them in the front, but to me it was sort of a clearance issue, and I like the compactness and the sort of the tightness, if you will, of these treels. Color doesn't really matter, it's just kind of what I had on hand. This is the Gladiator rear, Gladiator front length. Really the only difference between the Gladiator is that the rear is going to be longer, and you could run JLU C10 fronts. It's all the same really. What else can I tell you? So the drive shafts are Injora. I haven't had a problem with these at all. These are 20 grams a set in terms of weight. Didn't necessarily go with them for the weight. It's more like the reliability component. I've never had a problem with these things coming out or losing a pin or anything like that. collapse. The front is 2.24 inches in length, and then the rear is going to be 3.82. See, I don't have any problems there with regards to clearance or anything like that. In the front, I am running the Reefs Micro. This is the 99 in brass. You don't need it in brass, it's just kind of what I had. It might be slight overkill, but you know, I like it and it works. And then below that, this is the Mofo RC, best servo mount ever. The reason that this thing is bumped back a little bit and there's some spacers there, you kind of have to mess with a little bit, is mainly just to accompany, you know, the WT Micro body, because you don't want it to rub in the front. So you see that there. So if you do go with the WT Micro, just know that you're going to need an adjustable servo mount in the front. Last but not least, two things. So the links are the shocks are in Jura. These are the big bore oil shocks that they have. I think I put maybe 3 or 4 drops of 15 weight in there. I did have this thing slammed before, but to me, the angle of this skid, this thing would just catch on everything. So I thought, well, I can either put stiffer springs in, or I can just, you know, kind of change out the shocks altogether. And that's what I did. I'm not like in love with the ride height, but you know, for this build, it works. And then when you put the battery in, it just, you know, give a little bit more sag. So it's a little bit of a monster truck, but you know, it's fine. It's a hard body. It's not going to be like a total line slayer or anything like that. So this is just held in place with magnets. And then I wanted to show some battery options as well for this. So I always run these Palm Beach Palm Power 2S LiPos. These are 2S 350 milliamp hours. This is just a super small rubber band, and then just attach that guy there, and then this will rest here, you know, on the side like that. So works real well. And I wanted to show you the comparison here. This is a 3S pack. You can run 3S, but I think 3S on these little crawlers is like a little bit too much, and then you're sort of like, you might run into compatibility issues there. I wish I could get this these batteries a little bit more forward, but just due to the narrowness of the body, they kind of like live here on the side of this chassis, and that's what it is. So it's really no big deal to me, because this thing, like I said, is not a line slayer. It's more, you know, more of a trail truck, kind of mob around, take pictures of it because it looks cool. These are probably the best tire, in my opinion, for the SCX24s. I've tried so many different other ones and versions, things like that. These things just grip on everything. They work. Depending on whether or not you like the look of them or not would kind of influence what tire you're going with, but I like these a lot. You see these on a lot of my builds. These are the LGRP wheels and tires as well. These are the larger Swamp Kings. I believe these are 64 millimeters. I have to double check. And then I'm running the Flub RC inserts in these. I always vent my tires. I think it makes a big difference. Otherwise, you're sort of like driving on balloons. So vent the tires, it will do way better. With regards to the paint, I kind of screwed this thing up a couple times, but I kind of just went with it because, you know, I wanted it to look like you'd be driving around in the woods and you'd be hitting rocks and stumps and stuff like that. But the body is sprayed with just rattle can, just kind of what I had. I hit it with like a little bit of a chrome / copper underneath, and then I hit it on top with black, and then just took a little bit of sandpaper and rubbed it. So it looks like, you know, it's been rubbing on rocks and hitting stuff and that sort of thing. And then I glued the magnets down. This looks a little messy because they did have windows in here at some point, but I don't know, they hit something and they kind of fell out, and it's a little grimy in there, but it is what it is, so no big deal. These are magnets that are hot glued in there. Actually, you can use other versions, Shugu, you know, the E3600 I think it is, but the hot glue for me seemed to work well, and it's it's a little wonky in there with regards to how these things are sitting, but you know, it works, and I'm going to go with it.